For our last example in this lesson, we're going to take a look at the difference between prefix and postfix increment operators. And the differences that we see here for the prefix and postfix increment also apply to the prefix and postfix decrement, except that those, of course, would subtract 1 from the corresponding variable. So for this project, you'll find it in the fig05_16 folder. And let me go ahead and open up the project. As you can see here, we have a small program that's completely contained within the main method of our class increment. Now, for the purpose of this example, I'm going to run it in the debugger so that we can step one statement at a time and see what happens as we execute the program. Now, at the moment, I've set a breakpoint here on the statement int c equals 5, and that's going to initialize the variable c to 5. So let's go ahead and start the program running, and we'll also step over that statement so that now we can see the variable here with the value 5. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to display the value of c before we post increment it. Now, of course, c's value is 5, so when I hover over c, it's showing me that here in the IDE in the little tooltip that displays. And we can also see the value here in the locals window or in the autos window as well, if we would like. And what we want to do now is just step over this statement so that we can see in the output window that the c before post increment is in fact 5. Now with post increment, we expect to use the current value, then see it get incremented. So let's go back to the code for a moment here, and you can see we're outputting the value of the expression C++, which by the way happens to be how that language was named. It's the C language plus more, C++. So in any case, here what we're saying to do is to take the current value of C and output it, then add 1 to C after that has occurred. So as I hover over C right now, we can see that it is indeed 5. And as I step over that statement, first let's look at the output, and we can see that it did indeed display 5. But if you look down here in the locals window, you can see that it has been incremented to 6 already. So when we get ready to output it again here at line 13, we can see the incremented value, and we're also displaying this again here, not only to just prove that the value was incremented, but also to prove that it doesn't get incremented again as well. So if I step over that statement and I switch over to my program output, you can see here that it did indeed increment after the fact to 6, and we were able to use that value in the next statement. So now if I go back over to my program, I'm going to skip a line of output here, and I'm going to set C back to 5 for the next part of the program, so you can see the change down here in the locals window. And I'm now going to output the value just to show you that it's been set back to 5, and so we see that here. Next, we're going to pre-increment the value. Now, C is still 5 right now, but as I execute this statement, it's going to add 1 to C, then take that value and use it in this interpolation expression here. So as I step, now we see immediately C's value has been incremented to 6. Notice that the formatted string that's being output here after the evaluation of the string interpolation expression contains the value 6, not the value 5, so it was incremented already. And if I go look at my output window, we can see that it was incremented first, then displayed, not displayed, then incremented the way it happened in the second line of the output up above. And to prove that the value is now 6, we then go ahead and actually we can first hover over it here and see the value that's going to be displayed, but as I step over that statement, we can see indeed that it is still 6 in the next statement within the program. So again, if you're using these operators in standalone statements, it's kind of irrelevant whether it's going to be a pre-increment or a post-increment in that case, because by the time you reach the semicolon for the statement, in both cases, the variable will be incremented by 1. The only time at which pre-increment and post-increment really differs for you is if you use those expressions in larger expressions, and that can lead to subtle errors in your code if you're not careful with your program logic. So in general, it's best to modify a variable in a statement by itself then use the value in a separate statement so that you can make sure that your program logic is correct.